Hey, all you innovators, big thinkers, and channel disruptors out there. The United Soybean Board and the Yield Lab Institute are challenging companies to create innovations that increase the use and value of soybean meal in existing markets. It's all part of the Soy Innovation Challenge. Welcome to Feedstuffs 365. I'm Sarah Muirhead, and joining me today is Brandon Day, Chief Operating Officer of the Yield Lab Institute. Brandon, thank you so much for joining us and talking to us about the Soy Innovation Challenge.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Sarah.
So before we get into the challenge, tell us a little bit about the Yield Lab Institute and what your role is there.
So I'm the Chief Operating Officer of the Yield Lab Institute, and the Yield Lab Institute is the ag tech think tank nonprofit arm of the Yield Lab Group. We're a 501c3 based in St. Louis, Missouri. And so more broadly, the Yield Lab Group is comprised of a for-profit side and a nonprofit side. The for-profit side is a global federation of venture capital funds that invest in early stage food and ag tech technologies. I run the Institute, which is a nonprofit arm. And what we do is, as a think tank, do a variety of programs and initiatives that help try to stimulate more in a global innovation and startups and ventures and deal flow, perhaps to be investable by one of our 4 regional funds or maybe other early stage venture capital funds or investors who are looking for great opportunities to support food and ag tech startups and technology. And so these innovation challenges are actually one of our key activities at the Institute that we do. And we do that with partners like the United Soybean Board or even the private sector folks who are looking to specifically focus on either specific topics or nascent spaces in food and ag, or trying to drive forward more deal flow and attention to sectors of food and ag that aren't getting that right now. And so that's where we're at with the Soy Innovation Challenge here in 2022.
So what exactly is the Soy Innovation Challenge and how did it come to be?
Yeah, so this is actually the second challenge that we've done with the United Soybean Board. The first one we actually did was in 2020, and that one was focused more broadly on the entire soy value chain and sourcing innovation and technology that could disrupt that and capture more value back directly to soy farmers. So the way these challenges are structured is we typically have an open call to any global startup, research team or group of innovators and entrepreneurs working on a really interesting idea that falls within the scope, and we encourage them to apply. And when they apply, we do a rigorous selection process where we try to target 6 to 8 startups and put them through an accelerator type of program where they get to work with us, they get to work with the United Soybean Board and our other partners and get mentorship, networking, evaluation of their business model, market fit. And then ultimately, each of those finalists are in the competition for some cash prizes. So this time around in this challenge, this one is focused exclusively on soybean meal. And so this challenge has been brought forth by United Soybean Board because as your audience likely knows, there's an increased amount of demand for soybean oil. And so to meet this demand, there's going to be an enormous amount of crush capacity coming online. And so there'll be a lot of meal standing around that's looking for end use in markets. And so this challenge is trying to source innovation and technology and drive more value to the meal side. So we're looking at innovations in animal agriculture, livestock, aquaculture, pet foods, soy foods for humans, food and feed. But we're also looking at issues around transport and storage of meal and being able to have that meal ready and on hand for those end use and end markets.
So it's about creating additional demand for soybean meal, and some of that. If it's demand that's outside of animal feeding, of course, that could put additional cost pressure on feed manufacturers and animal producers. How do you kind of find that balancing act? Do you take into effect the economics and all of these things when you look at, is this a good technology or a good idea to take forward?
Yeah, we do. And what we do and what we did with the first challenge and this one is the folks who are involved in the review process of the applicant pool will be a combination of myself, our other partners, USB team, but also several of their farmer board members. So several of their farmer board members were actually a part of the review process for the first challenge, and they will be a part of the review process for the second challenge. So what we try to do is when we're looking at who to select to move forward, we anchor ourselves with the thought of which of these startups and which of these researcher ideas have the best chance to really bring more value back to the farmer and the producer, right? Because ultimately that's what we're trying to do is drive value and drive more potential revenue streams or opportunities for the soy farmer, right? So that's the anchoring thought that we have in the back of our mind, and if that does create some economic pressures, we try to factor that as best as we can and try to see if there's a way to alleviate that by giving the ventures or innovations that have the most promise to the chance to move forward and get some cash and prizes.
Are you looking for ventures and innovations that are like really on the beginning edge of things, or that to have a little more, at least a little traction behind them? Where do you kind of gauge that?
We're looking for all the above, and we are looking at innovations at the early stage. So even at the research bench top level that are merely perhaps ideas or projects, but just need a little bit of funding and a little bit of strategic support. Those are in fact ideal candidates for this challenge. And then of course, if they already have progressed and perhaps have a product or have a solution or technology or service developed, and maybe they already have a for-profit venture or entity, those are great candidates as well. So we're looking for all of those, right? It's not exclusive just to startups or ventures. It's also, research and research level ideas. So
All of the above. So, you said that this is the second year doing a soy innovation type challenge. Can you reflect a little bit on some of the things that perhaps came out of that first challenge, or maybe even some other challenges that you have done? What are some of the things that really stand out for you as this has been a really cool idea and we brought this forward?
yeah, I'll reflect on, two or three of the finalists that were participants or finalists of the first soy challenge. One of them was actually a startup called Regrow Ag, and at the time they had a different name that they rebranded and actually acquired a startup during participation in the challenge. What's interesting about them is they're a digital ag, a precision ag solution that helps farmers and producers make more informed decisions on the farm and with respect to inputs and practices. And they have a digitized marketplace and a platform that have actually partnered with Microsoft as a way to perhaps be an additional service provider to food and ag. So what's great about them is they were actually the winner of one of the first soy challenge. They got the grand prize, and they've gone on to raise quite a bit of follow-on venture investment and money, and are doing quite well. If you look them up, you'll read about a lot of the awards and a lot of other competitions that they've participated in and won as a result of that. So I like to talk about them as a good shining star from the first challenge. And another example that was actually a startup called Soymetrics, that was an idea developed out of Colorado State. And they've developed what's called the DayCent model, which is basically a way to model all the different kind of practices on the farm to measure what kind of carbon sequestration practices or things that a farmer and an individual farmer are doing to lower their carbon footprint, and validating that with actual scientific research and data. And so they spun out that technology that was developed out of Colorado State into a venture called Soymetrics. We worked with them during the challenge in 2020 and assigned them a mentor. And interestingly, very shortly after they participated in the challenge, they were acquired by Indigo Ag, another large and successful ag tech startup, and now they've become basically the carbon division under the new venture. So I like to point to those two examples really as key things that have come out of the challenge. And we had some really interesting technologies just generated from that first challenge. And what was interesting about that too, as well as as I mentioned, we had reviewers from USB, and actually Syngenta and ICL were also partners in that first challenge, and so they got to review and be a part of the selection process. But it was really interesting to see the differences between what innovations Syngenta and ICL thought would really be interesting and promising and move them forward to the challenge versus what the farmer and farmer board members on USB thought. So a real interesting dichotomy of what folks view as innovation, what they think is most promising as innovation. But I think we arrived at a really good and strong group from that first challenge, and we're hopeful we can repeat that same process here this time.
Yeah, it's always good to have input from from all sides because they have different perspectives they bring to the table. So when you look at the number of applications, do you get quite a bit of interest when you do a challenge? Is it you're
Yeah,
sorting through a lot of applications and a lot of competition? Or
yeah. So to give you some hard figures, so like I said, this is the second of the soy challenges, and actually as a group, the Institute has run with this challenge 5 innovation challenges in total. So we've done 2 soy challenges, we've done a global aquaculture challenge, a sustainable ag tech challenge for the Latin American, the Caribbean region, and then a manure challenge. Actually, the manure challenge was our first one that we did back in 2019. So to give you some hard figures, the manure challenge back in 2019, and this was way before manure or fertilizers, any of the input issues that we're reading about in the news, was on anybody's radar or top of mind. And that challenge back in 2019 actually generated 65 worldwide applicants that were working in innovations in anything having to do with manure management. So whether that's recycling of manure and repurposing it for high value fertilizers or products, or capturing manure water and filtering it and making it potable or reusable for industrial processes. So that challenge alone generated 65. The first soy challenge generated about 90. The global aquaculture challenge generated about 180 global applicants, and then the sustainable agtech challenge generated about 110. So I would say, in all, we've generated a little over 450 applicants from those 4 challenges alone. 33 of which have moved on as finalists to each of the 4 challenges, and a few of them have won either cash prizes or other support from us. So I like to think we have a pretty good and proven model of being able to source innovation, and specifically in really, I think, undersourced or underfunded or underappreciated, topics, like soy, like manure, and otherwise. So I think we're a first mover in that space. So.
Yeah, very impressive. So is sustainability a big part of this current soy innovation challenge? Is that something that's really factored in? There's just so much discussion of that these days. That's why I asked that question. Is that something that you guys really look at, or is it just kind of a side thing and you're more focused on driving that demand for soybean meal?
No, it is a key component. I would say, 1A is definitely the driving demand and value for the meal. And then I would say 1B is right there close to is the sustainability message. And what I'm finding out in this space, because I'm learning a lot more about meal and the feed side, is that there's definitely a big gap and an opportunity to get the most out of either meal or whatever the feed is, from an energy, from a caloric or nutritional perspective, for whether that's animals or humans. So there's definitely the sustainability angle on this, as well as, we want to be able to optimize, all the nutritional value that you can get out of soy and out of that commodity. And so leaving that on the table and not being able to put that into, the pig or the chicken or whomever that is being fed to, it's definitely not a good sustainability story to tell. So we're hopeful that we can find some innovations that are addressing problems around that. So absolutely, that's key, and it will be considered in our criteria for evaluating the startups.
Now we're looking at a pretty tight application period for anyone who's interested in submitting an idea. It opened a couple months ago, and then it wraps up. Final applications have to be in by, I believe it's December 6th. Is that correct?
That is, yes. So the deadline to apply is next Tuesday, midnight Central Standard Time. So I encourage anybody to go to thesoychallengelive.com if they want to find out more information about the challenge, what kind of innovations we're looking for, the different categories, what we will award to the selected finalists, and what the timeline for the application submittal and then the next steps will be. So you can find out more information there, and then also find the application form to apply.
So you mentioned prizes a couple times. What's on the table here?
Yeah, so we've got a great combination of cash and in-kind prizes. So we've got $170,000 in cash prizes, courtesy of the United Soybean Board, that we'll be awarding. We have $5,000 in in-kind services and technical credits, courtesy of Amazon Web Services, that will be awarded $5,000 in credit per finalist, which we're targeting 6 to 8 finalists for the challenge. And then also, one of our other partners in the challenge is a company called Solus Agrosciences, based in St. Louis, and they're actually a contract research group. So what they do is they provide access to lab equipment, lab space, scientific expertise, and research expertise. So as a part of that, part of the challenge, the finalists will also get support from them, and they have a lab and have equipment in St. Louis. So if any of our startups happen to be in the area, they'll have access to that. But more remotely, they'll get access to their research expertise. But then beyond the cash and in-kind prizes, every finalist that's selected for the challenge will get assigned a mentor. They'll get access to the Yield Lab Institute and the Yield Lab's global network of ag tech business and technical leaders for evaluation of their technology, market fit, business model. So they'll really get the full experience of going through an accelerator program and finding out, where are they at in the evolution of their idea or their innovation, and what things they need to do. So that in some cases can hold a lot more, value or monetary value than strictly just the cash. But when they get selected as a finalist, we like to say they're a part of the Yield Lab family, and then we try to do our best as we can to help them support on their journey.
So any final words of encouragement for those folks who are thinking, "Oh, I should do this, but maybe not." I mean, how do you get them past that, and get them involved?
Yeah, I've been getting a lot of questions from, either researchers or groups that are working on really interesting ideas, but maybe they're not a startup, or they have an entity or an LLC formed. That's okay. I encourage you to apply and not be overwhelmed by the application form that might ask a lot of questions that are more tailored to startups or ventures. We're looking for all ideas, and we want to give the ones that are most promising a chance and an opportunity to compete for some funding and some support. So, and if you have any other questions just about the challenge, what we're looking for, maybe you think maybe it's not a good fit or not a good fit, there's a way to contact us with the contact button on the Soy Challenge Live website, so you can reach me directly, and I'm happy to answer and field questions. But I encourage all those folks, researchers, innovators, entrepreneurs, groups, founders, anybody working on a really interesting idea in the soybean meal space. I encourage you to apply and get that application in before next Tuesday.
Brandon Day of the Yield Lab Institute, thank you so much for your time today and for backing these initiatives in terms of, looking at some new uses, looking at some innovation, and really helping to drive people forward with some of those things.
Thank
Reminder
you.
that deadline is December 6th, so it's coming up quick next week. So get those applications in. Thank you all for joining us today. A quick programming note: next week we have a couple of great webinars that are on tap. Tuesday and Wednesday, go to Feedstuffs 365 and check those out. Then on Thursday, our Ann Hess will talk to the National Pork Board about the market potential for U.S. pork in Colombia and Chile. So lots going on next week as well. Until then, for Feedstuffs 365, I'm Sarah Muirhead.